I was his White House press secretary, which means I had a role that saw him practically every day and traveled with him.
And you saw nothing?
For more than 95%.
You were on the plane with him going to the debate, and you didn't see anything.
Well, when we were on Air Force One going to the debate, you got to remember that his campaign people were on the team, his family was on the team. I actually was one of those rare trips that I didn't really see him until after the debate, even though I was on the plane.
So when this book landed on my desk and I saw a broken White House in the subtitle, I have to say, I thought you were going to say that try as you might to convince Joe Biden to drop out of the race, because what we were seeing is what you were seeing, and he was struggling, couldn't do it. I thought you were going to say you were angry at that, but mostly...
I did too.
What you said in this book is you're angry at the people who tried to push him out.
Yes, that's correct.
Some Americans are going to say, seriously?
But not just the party that pushed him out, the party as it's behaving today in this moment when we need a Democratic Party to be fighting, to be an opposition party.
And I think this is the moment now where Democrats in particular here, because I see them as the opposition party, they should be the opposition party. This is a moment to be the opposition party.
But I want to pick up on what Tony was saying, because I too thought that. And you said, people said, why didn't members of his inner circle speak up about what many believe was the apparent decline of Joe Biden? You said you're a member of the inner circle and you never saw the decline. And after that, I wrote, how? Yep. You even write, Karine, that you were on the plane with him going to the debate and you didn't see anything.
Well, when we were on Air Force One going to the debate, you got to remember that his campaign people were on the team, his family was on the team. I actually was one of those rare trips that I didn't really see him until after the debate, even though I was on the plane. So really, I want everybody to know that I take this question incredibly seriously. I do.
It is important for the American people to know this, is that the president has said he takes classified documents and information very seriously. And so, I just want to make sure that this is understood, that he takes this very seriously. But again, this is something that the president takes very seriously. We have been transparent here. And again, he takes this very seriously. I'm not going to get into politics from here. What I can say is what I've laid out, which is the president takes this very seriously. He does. And I've said this multiple times already. We take this very seriously. The president takes this very seriously. He was not aware that the records were there. He does not know what is in the documents. Again, classified information, classified documents, he takes very seriously. Again, this is something that the president takes very seriously. But I just want to underscore that this is something, again, that the president takes very seriously. Look, again, and not just me, he has said this. You have heard the president say this twice already, and he said this before. Classified documents and information, he takes that very seriously. He takes that very seriously. He said that he respects, or he takes classified information and documents very seriously. Again, we take this very seriously, and the president does as well. All I can say is the president has been very clear on this. He takes this very seriously.
Do you acknowledge that the fact that the White House did not reveal this to the public, despite the fact that you've known about it for months, undercuts the president's promise of being transparent with the American people?
But here's the thing. They were transparent. There was transparency in doing what you're supposed to do when these items were discovered. I disagree. There has not been a limit of transparency. There has not been a limit of transparency. That I will disagree with you on that.
Thank you, everybody.
I was his White House press secretary, which means I had a role that saw him practically every day and traveled with him.
And you saw nothing?
For more than 95%. We've always said, we're not going to say, oh, he didn't age. He aged. And he poked fun at it. We always owned up. And with age comes what happens when you get older.
Which is?
But when we talk about the mental acuity, and again, I take this very, very seriously. Yeah. I never saw anyone who wasn't there. I saw someone who was always engaged.
Look, I'll do what he's unable to do. I'll lead an effective strategy to mobilize true international effort to pressure. He looked at the camera. Remember what he said? He said, it is what it is. Well, it is what it is because he is who he is. That's why it is what it is. Well, I'm sick and tired of smart guys.
I saw someone who understood policy, pushed us on the policy, and also understood history. And there were times, I'll tell you the story, there were times where he would call me into the Oval Office, and I would be like, oh no, because I knew whatever he was going to ask me was going to be direct, was going to be about a story he read, about how we're pushing back, how we're pushing a message forward.
And you write about the people within the party pushing him out. Some would describe those people fighting for a replacement candidate is fighting. But you also described this current state of the Democratic Party as too timid. What can the Democratic Party do to get out of this timid and even some will say disappointing place?
So timid that you've gotten out of the Democratic Party.
Here's the thing. I actually think that the system is broken. The two-party system is broken, and we need it to be fixed, to be working in order for a democracy.
Kamala Harris called it reckless for Joe Biden to run for re-election. You don't use words like that in here. In fact, you think what was reckless was pushing him out. Can you explain?
Yeah, so I think you have his decision to run. You have to go back to 2023 early, that winter spring moment coming out of the midterms, which was arguably, it's been stated, one of the most successful midterm elections for a first-term president. And there wasn't a red wave. There was supposed to be a red wave. And a lot of it was because of the successes that came from the Biden administration. And I would say from that time, arguably, you could say he was successful, right? And I just mentioned in his first couple of years, he was the incumbent. He was the only person to have ever beaten Donald Trump in a presidential election. And so all the things lined up, and everyone was saying, you should run, he should run. And so that's what I want to take people back to that time and not be revisionist historians here and really focus on what made him make that decision. And I think for me, fast forwarding to June 2024, when so much was at stake for this country, for our democracy, it just seemed as if doing that to someone also who had more than 50 years of, public servant work and had, again, arguably a very successful, objectively, a very successful presidential run, I didn't understand it. I didn't understand why this is the way you would treat somebody when we are just weeks, months ahead of an election season in a really unprecedented time.
Leave Biden me alone! Please.
Well, to follow up on that, I mean, in your book, you talk a lot about how the Republicans were very in lockstep with President Trump. Do you think it's okay for people to be in lockstep, have unwavering support, even if there are concerns that a lot of people were having?
So I think there are two things here. I think that it is important to have your moral compass just in general as you think about what's going right now in this country, as you think about vulnerable communities who are under attack. It is important to have your moral compass. Joe Biden was not under investigation. Again, he objectively had a successful period as president. And he was the only person to have beaten Donald Trump, has spent 50 years as public servant. It is not the same, right, in the sense of comparing those two people. What was different is how they reacted in that period of time where I think so much was at stake. And it was, I think, a cruel way to treat someone. Again, not under investigation, had a pretty good presidency, and had beaten Donald Trump. Was the only person who had beaten Donald Trump.
Was also clearly having problems, right? I mean, lots and lots and lots of people who just watching him on video, let alone meeting him, had reported on that. Have you reflected on why there's this big disconnect between the millions of Americans at home who were watching him and said, I don't know if he's all there, and you saying behind the scenes, wow, he was there?
So a couple of things. We were always honest. You couldn't hide the fact that he was aging, right? And we saw that there were moments where it showed that he was no one is denying that, and he would poke fun at that.
The administration strongly criticized the media for clips showing the president appearing to be confused, freezing at times, and you called it cheap fakes, misinformation, disinformation. In one case, even implied that it was the product of artificial intelligence, calling it deep fakes. Do you have any regret over using that language?
Not at all. Not at all. And let me be clear, it was a certain part of the media. And, I mean, you can speak to this better than I can. A certain part of the media which was doing this. And look, independent mainstream fact checkers in the press and misinformation experts have been calling out cheap fakes. And at the end of the day, they're fakes. That's what they were, targeting the president. They had said, the reporters and these misinformation experts said that this president was being targeted. And what we did was echo them. That's what we did. And look, we'll certainly continue to call that out. And the cheap fakes didn't come from me. I didn't coin that. I didn't come from this White House or this podium. That came from the media. They called it cheap fakes. And they said, this president, President Biden, was being targeted on misinformation. It was purposefully being done to this president. And what we did is we echoed that. So I don't regret it at all. It was just the facts.
It was just the facts.
And he said it was a horrible debate, terrible debate. He has spoken about it. I have spoken about it at the podium. I think I said this to you at the 8 o'clock hour, to you and the other anchors. And this question, I take it very seriously. When you talk about his mental acuity, we talk about him being all there. Very seriously.
You have said, though, from this podium many, many times over the last 2 weeks that this president takes the handling of classified material very seriously. And yet we continue to learn about more documents being found and discovered at his home, including now some that go back decades to his time in the Senate. So why should the American people believe that this president takes classified material seriously and the handling of it?
Look, the American people heard from the president directly on this when he was asked by your colleagues at least twice now about how he sees this process. And he was very clear with the response of what we're currently seeing. And he says, I take this very seriously. He said, I didn't know that the documents were there.
You have been the one messaging that he takes this seriously. You have also been saying over and over again that you are cooperating fully with this investigation.
That hasn't changed, Mary.
But given that, why then did it take several searches and the FBI coming in to uncover the full extent of the documents at his house?
I understand your question. I've said many times, the president has said many times, he takes this very seriously. He takes this very seriously. That's what I want to make sure that the American people understand. And I just refer.
American people might question that, given that you keep every few days it seems we are finding that more documents have been found at his house.
What I'm telling you is what the president has said, which is he takes this very seriously.
He's someone that I saw almost every day, if not every day, and traveled with more than 95% of the time on Marine One, Air Force One. He was someone who would debate with you, engage with you.
What's the disconnect here then? Like, is the country just ageist? Because millions of Americans didn't think he was up to it, but you're saying there was nothing there.
Well, I'm someone.
No problem.
I think the difference is I saw him every day.
Okay.
I did. I saw him every single day and had a first account of the president that I understood and I knew to have cared about this country, understand policy, understand history, and be able to have, again, objectively a very successful couple of years of his first term.
Have you been tested for some degree of cognitive decline?
I've been tested and I'm constantly tested. Look. All I got to do is watch me, and I can hardly wait to compare my cognitive capability to the cognitive capability of the man I'm running against. Thank you so much.
Later. Mr. Vice President, your opponent in this election, President Trump, has made your mental state a campaign topic. And when asked in June if you'd been tested for cognitive decline, you've responded that you're constantly tested in effect because you're in situations like this on the campaign trail. But please clarify specifically, have you taken a cognitive test?
No, I haven't taken a test. Why the hell would I take a test? Come on, man. That's like saying before you got in this program, if you take a test where you're taking cocaine or not, what do you think, huh? Are you a junkie?
What do you say to President Trump, who brags about his test and makes your mental state an issue for voters?
Well, if he can't figure out the difference between an elephant and a lion, I don't know what the hell he's talking about. Did you watch that? Look, come on, man. I know you're trying to goad me, but I mean, I'm so forward looking to have an opportunity to sit with the president or stand with the president in debates. There's going to be plenty of time. And by the way, as I joke with him, I shouldn't say it. I'm going to say something I probably shouldn't say. Anyway, I am very willing to let the American public judge my physical and mental as well as my mental fitness, and to make a judgment about who I am. You can call me Biden, Joe Biden.